First Florida man, endo de soto. First Florida man, Hernando de Soto. Won't you so loco? Show off your photos, throw out your Twinkies, throw up your ho-hos, tuck in them pinkies. Them shits a no-no. The first Florida man was Hernando de Soto. Brought to my attention by the man with the mojo. My 8th subscriber, I'm up at Goso. Jump in them Sinkies and dump them mimosos. The first Florida man was Hernando de Soto. First Florida man was Hernando de Soto. First Florida man.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. I have several guests with me tonight, this afternoon, whatever time it is. And I wanted to introduce everyone before we got started. We're going to talk about a guy from Florida. So the Florida man, intro is very apropos for today. First of all, we have Connie from Conspiracy Extremist. He's got a show called Horseshoes and Hand Grenades. It's mostly on Rumble, but I think you're on YouTube too.
I'm on YouTube for now, but yeah, go to Rumble.
Okay. Welcome, Connie. We have Osiris from Middle Maga is the name of his channel. All of these links are in the description below, by the way. Do you want to introduce yourself, Osiris?
Yo, what's up? Good to be here. Thanks for having me. I just do a show where basically the theme is I believe that power should be distributed to as many people as possible, and we talk about that a lot. So that fits this topic, actually.
Yes,
but thank you for having me. Middle Maga.
I've been trying to have you on my show for a while, ever since I was doing the thumbnails for you and Iggy. What was that? Like 2 years ago now.
Yep, that was good stuff. Shout out to Iggy. Shout out to Might Be Wrong.
Yep, I'm glad to finally have you on. And of course, we have Todd from Generally Specific. Todd, you want to introduce yourself? Tell the people a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I do math as my background. No, I'm really not a math American at all. I just do things and stuff. Like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get. Cable TV, just switch the channel. You never know. I'm a variety show. Just shout out to Middle Maga. Make sure you got your live chat going, because I was trying to engage with you and send some folks your way on your last live stream, and I kind of got a cold shoulder, and it made me feel really, really, really chilly out there in the cold by myself. No interactions.
My bad. I mean, I'm doing so much. I apologize. I think I saw you mention that in the chat.
Yeah. I think Katie said your bread and butter is doing regular videos. I can't wait to check some out, man. I appreciate it. Really good setup, really professional. I liked it.
Oh, thanks a lot.
So let's jump right into it. We're talking about this guy from Florida named Alan Davis, and it was brought to my attention by one of my subscribers. Actually sent me this in an email. Ace sent me this, and when I first watched, I watched in the living room with my husband, and we sat there, and after we got done watching it, I was so torn because I could put myself in everybody's shoes. Everybody in this whole story, I could put myself in them shoes and get it from their perspective. So I thought to myself, the best way to go about covering this is, because I don't have an opinion. I'm very in the middle on this one, which I'm not usually in the middle, but was to have a group of people on, and I invited more than just you three, but to have a few people on who might have differing perspectives so we could talk about it. So let's watch the video first, and then we'll talk about it afterwards. This is Florida Man, the world's most annoying neighbor. You decide. Is this Florida man the world's most annoying neighbor? And this is a 15-minute video. If you want me to pause it and to comment, we can do that, or we could just watch it straight through and then talk about it after. It's up to you guys.
A sheriff's investigator will likely drive by here to confirm that Davis has violated the court order.
Nearly 25 years ago, I began covering complaints about this Central Florida home.
It's a junkyard.
Seminole County officials said the owner, Alan Davis, had been piling junk in his yard in violation of local ordinances.
But every time they keep screwing with me, I keep moving more. And there is nothing they're going to do about it.
Davis called it a political protest.
It's basically, I'm tired of the government steamrolling over people, and they can just kiss my.
Back then, Davis had just a small amount of junk on his property.
You think there's a lot here now? Why don't you come back by tomorrow? Let's see what I really think of the county.
At that point, Davis had not yet built this giant statue of a human rear end, which he would later load onto his truck and drive down the interstate while headed to court hearings.
The name of the sculpture is Kiss My and you can just do it.
Davis had not yet been arrested, put on trial, and sent to prison for criminal littering.
When he would get letters that the foliage was too high, the weeds are too high in the front yard, that he would actually get fertilizer and fertilize the weeds to make them even higher.
More recently, Davis built this 2-story structure in his yard. It's some kind of storage platform. You cannot even see his house back there anymore. For 25 years, Seminole County has been trying to get Alan Davis to clean up his yard on this quiet residential street. And for 25 years, Alan Davis has been thumbing his nose at the county and the people who live in this middle-class neighborhood.
He just adds and adds and adds every day.
David Radosevich lives 2 doors down.
I was very happy to hear that they're going to finally do something.
For decades, he's begged the county to take action. Did you think when I first met you nearly 25 years ago that we would be standing here talking today?
No. Well, I thought for sure by now it'd be cleaned up, to be honest with you.
Live from WKMG, the Problem Solvers. This is Local 6 News at 5.
It's not just the airplane fuselage outside Alan Davis's home that angers his neighbors, nor is it the sports car body. It's the airplane, the sports car, the water heater, the metal drums, the twisted seal, the plastic tarps.
He's got a pool back there that's really, really bad.
Alan Davis's legal troubles began in April 2000 when a Seminole County code inspector found uncultivated vegetation in excess of 24 inches and objectionable, unsightly, or unsanitary matter that threatened the health, safety, lives, and welfare of the citizens. County officials repeatedly told Davis to clean up the yard. His response?
Fat chance!
Instead, Davis began hauling out more junk. He obtained some of this material from his former job rebuilding vintage World War II airplanes.
Now when you do it in a big scale, it gets results.
Tonight, you'll visit places in this country
Hey, Katie.
where neighbor has turned against.
Yes.
What I found the funniest about this is, you know that famous clip, sound sample, Fat Chance. You've heard
Yeah.
that before, right? Like,
Yeah.
When I put those 2 and 2 together, I'm like, that is used all over the place.
Yeah.
Now I
It's
know-
really hard not to like this guy, right? Is it just me? I really like this guy.
So far.
So yeah, exactly, so far.
Neighbor.
In 2002, the CBS News program 48 Hours featured the dispute as Davis began creating his most infamous display, a 6-foot-tall fiberglass sculpture of a rear end. At least one neighbor complained to the county that the statue was obscene, prompting a sheriff's deputy to pay a visit.
He told me that he was going to remove my sculpture, and I quite flatly told him that he would have to talk to the Supreme Court of the United States.
Davis also made mini sculptures that are mounted on bricks from his front yard. He then sold these online. Davis figured if people bought them, it's not junk, it's art, protected by the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. Davis's antics prompted Playboy magazine to publish this cartoon depicting him annoying his neighbors. But it wasn't the statue that concerned county officials, it was the overgrown weeds and other unsightly junk. Seminole County's Code Enforcement Board eventually issued Davis a $13,000 fine, with an additional fine of $250 per day until the violations were corrected. But Davis refused to pay.
They will not get a single dime.
As you probably guessed by now, Davis does not live within a homeowners association. If he did, the HOA could have potentially foreclosed on Davis's home. But outside of HOAs like we are here, Florida's homestead exemption generally prevents debt collectors from seizing your primary residence. But other personal property like cars, furniture, and jewelry can still be seized and then sold at auction to pay off debts. Seminole County officials wanted to seize the junk in Davis's yard, in theory to pay off all his fines, but more importantly, to get this property cleaned up. So the county filed this lawsuit seeking to foreclose on Davis's personal property.
We would ask at this time to have a summary judgment on the foreclosure issue.
Mr. Davis. Your Honor, I object.
Davis represented himself in court. He's not an attorney, as the judge often reminded him.
I got to go to the law library. I got to call a friend of mine and find out how to serve a subpoena correctly.
Whenever Davis went to court, he loaded his butt statue into the back of his pickup and drove it down I-4. As folks looked on in astonishment, Davis intentionally positioned the sculpture outside the courthouse in hopes that the judge would see it.
I'm just going to keep fighting, and they can all just come kiss my.
But Circuit Court Judge Nancy Alley did not buy the free speech argument and issued this court order allowing the Seminole County Sheriff to seize $13,000 of Davis's personal property. Soon, forklifts, hazmat trucks, and moving vans rolled into this neighborhood as workers began hauling away the junk. Neighbors watched in amazement.
It's good that they're finally getting around to it, but it sure took a long time.
This cleanup cost Seminole County taxpayers more than $9,000. But for the first time in years, the yard was clean. Davis vowed revenge.
Wait till tomorrow. You think it's bad now? I'm going to move more in.
For years, all of this junk sat in the front yard of Seminole County's worst neighbor. Today, it all gets auctioned off.
2 months after the cleanup, Davis's belongings were put on the auction block.
Do I hear a bid?
Yes.
What is your bid, sir?
$50.
$50.
The winning bidder was John Weiser.
This is a whole nightmare.
He paid $95 for all of Davis's stuff. But little did Seminole County officials know then, Weiser and Davis were friends. Months after the county hauled away these vehicle parts and scrap metal, we found the same items right back in Davis's front yard.
You look at the humor of the whole thing, you've got one little guy, one little smart that is just running them around in circles.
Seminole County Sheriff did not find it humorous.
I'm not concerned at all about what people's perception is. All I have an obligation, responsibility to the people who live in the community to do everything we can to ensure that everyone complies with the law.
Soon, Davis was adding even more junk to his property, including toilets filled with cactus plants. He made a new butt sculpture, this one tattooed with the name of the judge who ordered him to clean up his yard. Then Davis took his political protest to new heights, climbing on the roof of his house where he assembled these steel drums in the shape of a middle finger.
The title of the sculpture is Salute to Seminole County, You're Number One.
You're a first class, you know what?
The frustration of his neighbors was bubbling over. Some secretly hoped that Davis would get struck by a bolt of lightning. But not even Mother Nature could stop him. By then it was clear to everyone that civil penalties were not going to deter Davis. So county officials turned up the heat. Deputies arrested Davis and prosecutors charged him with violating the Florida litter law. That law says any person who dumps litter in an amount exceeding 500 pounds is guilty of a third-degree felony.
Do you remember when I got arrested on your birthday?
Davis feared being separated from his young daughter and wife, but he says the fight was worth it.
Women getting the vote. What did they do? Civil rights. I mean, every political protest in this country has always gone above and beyond.
Yeah, she is my best supporter. And my daughter is always saying, I wish I had a normal daddy.
You will hear from the neighbors about rats, odors.
In 2003, a jury began hearing evidence in the criminal case.
The value of my home, nobody wants to buy it because nobody wants to live near it.
Code enforcement officers showed jurors photographs of the numerous violations, and a health department representative testified about the hazards the property posed to neighbors.
The mosquitoes can may be able to breed in that environment.
If there is a theme to this trial, it should be one man's trash is another man's treasure.
Davis's public defender argued that his client was exercising his constitutional rights.
What rights are you trying to protect, sir?
My right to privacy and my right to freedom of speech.
It did not take jurors long to reach a verdict.
We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of illegal dumping of litter.
A judge sentenced Davis to 1 year and 1 day in state prison, followed by 3 years of probation.
They mobbed me. They knew I was coming. They wanted my autograph.
I caught up with Davis while he was incarcerated.
I get charged with felony littering, and then now I'm cleaning garbage.
Davis would occasionally send me letters from prison. This one contained a legal document challenging his criminal conviction. It was written on toilet paper from the prison bathroom. Yes, this is toilet paper. Davis's yard may be messy, but his handwriting is exquisite.
It's all a matter of what somebody thinks somebody else should do. And in this country, we don't have the right to tell our neighbors how to live.
Davis predicted he'd be locked up again someday.
Will you be back in prison?
Probably. Yeah, probably will.
He was right. Just months after being released, a judge found Davis violated his probation and sent him back to prison for another year.
Oh, I think I'm going to probably be visiting Bubba tonight.
When Davis got out again, he violated his probation again.
Mr. Davis, so all you had to do was follow the rules.
And went back to prison again. But if you think a total of more than 4 years behind bars would change Davis's behavior, it didn't.
I've only been here, only got out of prison yesterday, and I'm going to start fertilizing today. Seminole County can kiss my...
The day after Davis completed his full sentence, he began growing his weeds again.
Jack and the Beanstalk. How about Alan and the Beanstalk?
He's back!
Neighbors like Jan Schmidt feared it would start all over again.
It's like you cannot be rational with an irrational person, and I think he's irrational.
Using Google Maps Street
You know
View,
what?
we can see what happened next.
I think this, obviously this is a crazy story, but the first thing I think of is how important it is to like be around like-minded people.
Yeah.
So like if let's say his neighbors were all as I guess rebellious, you could say, as him, they probably, and they wanted to stick it to the government as much as he did, there wouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's hilarious.
Yeah.
I also don't understand the law that he's allegedly breaking is littering, but how do you litter on your own property? It doesn't make any sense to me.
I thought the same exact thing. I mean,
Let's watch the last couple minutes of this and then we'll talk.
Well, hold on before we go. You have a flaw in the premise of your poll.
Okay.
Should he be allowed to visibly unalive little kittens in front of the neighborhood by dismembering them? I mean, whatever he wants.
Well, obviously the poll I'm talking about
Legally.
now. Well, yeah, but legally, apparently having the stuff out here is illegal. I'm talking about having the junk on his property.
It's
So I'm
against,
sorry if I didn't word it exactly like you like it, but
it's
that's what I'm
against
talking about.
but it's against policy, right? It's not really technically illegal.
No, it's a litter. The law is a litter law.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah. All right.
This is what Davis's yard looked like shortly after he got out of prison. And this is what it looked like a few years later. By 2016, Seminole County had placed over $1.9 million in liens on Davis's property. Once again, the county obtained a court order to seize the junk, this time hauling away more than 70,000 pounds of trash and debris. And once again, Davis was arrested for felony littering. He pleaded no contest to those new criminal charges and ultimately spent another year in jail. When you look in this direction,
yeah,
it's a pretty neighborhood.
Yeah, look, it's beautiful.
And when you look in the other direction,
junk. It's a junkyard. It's crazy.
When Davis got out again in 2017, he began this new construction without obtaining the proper building permits. Seminole County officials have been issuing Davis hundreds of dollars in code violation fines every single day for the past quarter century. Davis doesn't care.
I've been a renegade all my life. I don't like being told what to do.
At age 69, Davis says his political protest is still underway. By his own admission, his yard is more cluttered than it's ever been.
First off, people think I'm crazy. I didn't get into Mensa by being an idiot.
Davis claims to be a genius with an IQ of 147. I could not immediately confirm that, but I can confirm he started building yet another butt statue, which he plans to drive around town again while delivering lawsuits to government officials. The county's issued you millions of dollars in fines for all this. It hasn't deterred you.
Nope.
They've seized this junk. It's all come back. That hasn't deterred you. You have had 2 criminal convictions. That hasn't deterred you.
Nope.
What will deter you?
Oh, nothing. No, that's not going to happen. There is nothing in their ability that will deter me.
So this is all against the government.
Oh, yeah, it's baked.
What about your neighbors?
What about my neighbors? My neighbors have their own property. Freedom is freedom. If the government can tell you what to do with your property, you don't have freedom. Freedom has a look. This is what it looks like. This is freedom.
This is freedom.
This is freedom. For an intelligent person knows this is freedom. If you don't like it, you're free to go somewhere else.
If Davis were to suddenly clean up his property today, and we know that won't happen, he would still owe the county a whopping $5.5 million in code violation fines. So how will the county collect all that money? Under the Florida homestead exemption we told you about earlier, it appears county officials would simply have to wait for Davis to either sell his home or transfer it to someone else.
The county don't have our back. They just gave up on us.
A county spokesperson tells me, quote, Seminole County understands the community's frustrations with this long-standing issue. Over the past 25 years, the county has pursued every legal action available under state statutes. Unfortunately, without changes to state law, our ability to enforce further action is limited. Did he win?
Yeah, apparently. Congratulations, Davis, you won.
What does Davis have to say about his 25-year history of violating county codes and annoying his neighbors?
You can all kiss my...
So that's the gentleman we're talking about today. And like I said, when I first saw it, I had mixed emotions. Yeah, it is. That's what freedom looks like. Yeah.
I think this is a Ted Bundy situation. Like the point is fair, the way you went about it, maybe, or not Ted Bundy.
Ted Kaczynski.
Kaczynski. Yeah, thank you.
I knew who you were talking about.
Yeah.
So let's go around the table and so Connie, what do you think?
Well, just because of my nature, I'm on his side. I understand. I think someone in the chat said, "Would you be his neighbor?" I don't care. I have my own property. I don't really talk to my neighbors, to be honest. But I do think my point to reiterate is, it's important to be around like-minded people.
Yeah. Osiris, what do you think?
Would I be his neighbor? No, absolutely not. But does that mean he did anything wrong? No, the system has worked. The laws were enacted. He says, I don't want to obey. The dude did what, 4 years?
Yeah. And $5 million in fines.
They haven't changed the laws to change what they can do with the fines.
Mhm.
I think, and I truly believe he is a genius. That handwriting on toilet paper, immaculate. I mean, that's not the only thing, but sometimes people who are really, really smart, it comes out in a wrong, in the wrong way.
You're eccentric.
And yeah, so there's nothing, he didn't do anything wrong, but from my standpoint, I don't think that's respectable. But if you're a neighbor and you don't like it, nobody's forcing you to stay. It's terrible that your property value might have gone down to zero, but that's life. Life is not perfect.
Yeah. So GS, what do you think? Are you muted?
Yeah, sorry, the doggos are barking in the background on occasion. I apologize. Not trying to ruin your show. I did take a few notes in regards to the genius tag. I don't doubt it, but I found most Mensa members seem to lack common sense.
And I hate to interrupt you, but anybody who I've ever met who's proclaimed themselves to be a member of Mensa are the dumbest people I've ever met in my life. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
So quickly, I got the notes here, and we could touch on any of these, but I said average citizen has to take a crash course in legal procedures. That's something that the average citizen probably hopes they never have to deal with. In my opinion, Florida man is pure Americana, just pure Americana. Like the reason why we overthrew the yoke of good old King George, and the reason why it's likely that we'll never get another yoke put upon us. I'm hoping. Property values and aesthetics are important to most people. I would agree. However, freedom, I think, is penultimate, if not the ultimate. One man can keep the government chasing its tail. Imagine 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000 practicing civil disobedience.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting that this whole thing started over weeds in his front yard. I have kind of a personal story. My mom, we're British by, ancestry. And when she bought her house in a homeowners association neighborhood, which I advised her against, but she did it anyway, she wanted to have an English garden. And if you know what an English garden looks like, it's not as manicured as an American garden. It's a little chaotic, a little overgrown, and she planted her butterfly bushes and her flowers that she wanted, and her homeowners association told her you can't have that. And she's like, but it's an English garden. This is, she's got beautiful paths through it and a koi pond, but it doesn't look aesthetically pleasing to an American eye. So who's to say what he's growing are weeds or not? Who determines what is a weed?
Yep. Yeah, and somebody said he should put up a fence and no one would mind. He was trying to grow a wheat fence, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, I think it becomes a concern when it is. That's why you heard him in the trial. They're trying to show how the condition of his yard is affecting other people through what rodents or mosquitoes or other things. Because then now, just like free speech or anything else, it ends when you impede on someone else's rights in a way. So that's the mark for me.
They bought a house in Florida. They're going to have mosquitoes. They're going to have rodents. They live in Florida. So who's to say that his junk is what's bringing the rodents there? Rodents live anywhere,
If I were on that jury, I would have to see proof that it was literally from that. But you could tell the jury probably would just side with the neighbors because nobody wants to live by them. So
that I think most people are not looking at it from the same lens that I think we might be. Like, if you are taking away the freedom to do what you want on your own property, and this is not a homeowners association neighborhood.
No.
If these neighbors wanted to live in a homeowners association neighborhood, they should have bought a house there. This is not that. I specifically bought a house not in a homeowners association neighborhood. And there are a few houses in my neighborhood, not this bad, obviously, but that I would like to see kept up better, and they're not. And that's fine because nobody tells me what to do on my land either,
Yeah. Typically, the more expensive homes are kind of regulated more closely somehow, some way, because that didn't look like the most upper class of areas. I don't know for sure, but
it's like middle class, I would say.
Do you think that would happen in, wherever the rich people live in that area? I couldn't really foresee it happening, but they live further away. But what do you think about that?
I would guess not. But it depends on what you're considering. If you're just considering rich as in have a lot of money, it depends on where it is too. If it's in an urban or suburban area, probably not. But if you live out in the country, there's some really rich farmers who have lots of money who maybe do live like this, So
Yeah. The other thing from it, to me, it shows the power of being ungovernable. Could you imagine if every American had the spirit, at least? I know that it doesn't look right when you look at the optics, but the spirit of defiance,
yeah,
like testing the law and willing to go to jail for it. If we were willing to do that, the whole country would be in a better place, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. Middle Mega, I'm glad you said that because it jogged a memory. If the price isn't your life, then you can be bought. I.e., we know what you are. We're just negotiating on the price. And it sounds to me like this man has a price, and that is his life, to include his life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. He's willing to lay it all on the line. We need more Americans like that, not less, in my opinion.
Another thing about the homeowners association, which is interesting because I do live in a homeowners association, and like everyone violates it all the time, and no one cares because it's not enforced because the community doesn't care. So I think this is kind of more of an example of, even though he's not in a homeowners association, if everyone around him, I don't know, has an issue, they're going to put force on him to concede to what they want.
I think also if he was better friends with his neighbors, his neighbors might not be in this situation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't have my property looking like that because I respect my neighbors, So he obviously doesn't respect his neighbors.
Yeah.
what do you guys think about this litter law that he supposedly? Do you think that you can violate a litter law by having stuff on your own property?
No,
I do. I know it might be different. I do. If, like, for example, if I just have horse manure,
Mm-hmm.
and actually there are horse places right by me, actually, so that is interesting. But like, say I just pile up basically 100 tons of horse manure. Is that not violating? I mean, because the smell comes out. It could be, your rodents, whatever, flies. I think that gets to the point where you are now doing something that affects people outside of your property.
Now, what if you're selling that horse manure as fertilizer?
Yeah, I fertilized my garden with cow manure.
But so I think it'd be almost like in a court of law. Could you convince me on the jury that your horse manure is affecting somebody else's life?
I guess.
Well,
That's how I do it, because the reason why I say that is, and I know that's kind of arbitrary, is that once you get to that level, then that's where you could have like physical confrontations, altercations. That's where things can get really hairy and unsafe, in my opinion.
Yeah. We did get a super chat in from David Persons. Why are his rights the only rights that matters? His neighbors also have rights to a safe, healthy land and houses. That said, I admire his conviction, and we are going to give the dog some mini milk bones. Thank you very much for the super chat. What do you guys think about what David says?
So I understand the thought. However, I mean, that was an argument that was recently used over the last couple of years about, masks and all these things. I understand what you're saying. However, the principle, you have to stay strong in the principle. Otherwise it's a slippery slope. Then it's like, well, you not wearing a mask is harmful to me, so therefore you have to wear a mask.
Yeah.
That's my thought on it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we have to be more precise. What are the constitutional rights? I have to be more precise on that too. You don't have a right to be, what is the right? The right for your home to be safe? Is that a right?
Well, you have a right on your property to build a moat and throw crocodiles in it in Florida, I imagine. You have a right to build a castle wall. I mean, as long as it doesn't violate ordinances. And I guess that's kind of what we're up against. This man knew that there were certain ordinances. He felt as though this is on my property. Now, it's interesting when you talked about litter on one's own property. Could you be ticketed for it? I could see in a situation, if it were to blow into another person's property regularly, that could be definitely a nuisance or a menace to your neighbors. I don't know. I mean, it's a really, really good question. Like he said, one man's junk is another man's treasure. And I mean, I think you made a very good distinction there, Miss Katie, when you said that it seems like maybe his relationship with his neighbors, if it were better, then he would have more respect for his neighbors. And perhaps was there some disrespect towards him when things were more manageable and he just kind of did, two number ones up in the air?
Yeah. I do think it's also funny that in order to pay his fines, they confiscated his what they call junk to pay these fines. But if it was truly junk, how was it worth any money that they were going to confiscate it and pay the fines with it? They can't have it both ways, in my opinion. And obviously it only sold for $50 and he got it right back. But
that was kind of funny though. He had his own See, that's cool, man. That's why he was you said he was kind of likable, right? I think he was kind of likable, to be honest with you.
I think he's likable.
But too. I know I got clowned in the chat because I said he's kind of likable, but do I want to live by him? No.
I think the chat is pretty split right now. The chat is which is why I like to have different perspectives on right now.
I totally get it. So I'm just pulling from my own real world experiences. So for instance, like I mentioned, we do have a homeowners association in my neighborhood, and you're not supposed to park your car on the side of the road. You're supposed to park it in your driveway or your garage, right? People are constantly parking their car in front of my house, like cars lined up. Like they won't park in front of the house they live in. They'll park across the street in front of my house. And we used to get letters, and they never did anything, but they're like, you can't park, and they thought it was mine. And so it's very annoying and frustrating. But what am I going to do? I can't have their car towed.
Is it a private street though? Or is it a public street?
Well, it's not my property.
No, but I'm saying, is it a private neighborhood or is the street owned by the city?
Yes. I think
so how can they say they can't park there then? If it's
the homeowners association.
I don't know how the homeowners association can even have control over a city street.
I think they can. Well, it's not a city street, is it? Is it a city?
Well, it's part of, I don't know. It's part of the neighborhood. So
Yeah, no, the way I've seen it is that the roads in the neighborhood are they're kind of looked at differently. Because you go through some urban areas typically, or even rural areas where you see cars up on wood and they're working on their cars in the street. A lot of HOAs don't allow you to do any of that in the street or not.
Correct. Yeah.
Thank you. The vegetarian carnivore, Xena appreciates it too. Ava left. I don't know where she went. I don't know how many treats they go through in a week. They get treats on Wednesday nights and on Sunday afternoons, and they get mini milk bones for every super chat. That's really all the treats they get. So I appreciate it.
I'd also say I really don't like the, obviously just because of my mindset and everything, the way the government goes about enforcing these things, where they had these people come up and make the argument about the mosquitoes or some stuff. That's completely ridiculous. They're just making stuff up to try to get what they want to enforce the law.
Well, that's what I was thinking. What if he can prove that he's had pest control companies out and there's rat poison and mosquito repellent or whatever to keep what if he has documents saying we've had so-and-so pest company out and there are no pests or hazardous whatever on my property coming from this pile of art or junk or whatever you want to call it? Then what?
So the big question is, what's the over under that it's some Karen or Darren in the neighborhood that is so upset about the state of it? It's not pristine like they'd like it, and they just happen to have the right ear in government.
Could be.
By and large, government probably doesn't really give a rat's, until a bunch of citizens start whining and complaining and kvetching, and and then next thing
I think it's probably started that way. Like someone had it out for him and was able to get in someone's ear. But then as soon as he refused to comply with what Big Daddy government told him he has to do and push back, then they are going to go full force at you.
It's been 25 years now, though. So I don't know. I think it's just strictly the government now, not necessarily the neighbors.
Yeah, I'm not sure who taught whom a lesson.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say, I mean, looking at it constitutionally, I don't think there's anything here other than maybe the Fifth Amendment when you're looking at private property rights. And so this is almost like, I don't want to call it a loophole, but I've never really thought of this scenario before. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
You mean the fourth?
Is it the fourth? I'm sorry, I might be wrong.
The right to not be illegally searched and seized without proper writs of assistance or warrants.
Well, what I'm trying to think, what
fifth is a right to remain silent.
Oh yeah, I plead the fifth. Yeah, you're right.
But I was sitting there going, "Do I have it? Or have I?
No, you have. I'm just trying. I forget which one's the private property. But
let's look.
No, not the 14th. But my point is, I don't know if there is technically a right that's being violated here, but you can still take it to court and then the jury kind of decides. I mean, there's a lot of things that are happening in our country that I think are unconstitutional, but we largely accept it. So it is,
It is the fifth.
Okay.
Is it the fifth?
Yep.
There's more in it.
Not be taken for public use without just compensation.
All right. Awesome. Yep.
So
Fifth
I think
Amendment.
this is 100% a Fifth Amendment, and too bad it didn't go to. Would this go to the Supreme Court? I'm surprised it hasn't.
I'm surprised it hasn't yet.
Escalated. Yeah.
So I have an interview pulled up with his wife. If you guys want to watch that.
Yeah, for sure.
So this is just 6 minutes long, but let's hear what she has to say. They interviewed her while he was in jail or prison.
Of rulings from the Supreme Court of the United States, but Mr. Sheriff Asslinger obviously thinks that he's above the law. He always has, he always will. I mean, Johnny Polk would be rolling over in his grave if he knew what Asslinger had done.
When did you find out about this? Did you hear it?
Yeah, I heard it this morning. Yeah.
Were you sleeping?
I was in bed sleeping. Heard all this commotion. Came out here and I mean, this is unbelievable.
Why do you think that they don't have this right? Or why do you say you know they don't have this
I
right?
know they don't have the right. And the 11th District Court of Appeals in Atlanta already ruled in Marlette versus City of Jacksonville. But it doesn't matter. And they've got, Pamela Taylor's got FACE, and she thinks FACE is going to protect them. FACE teaches them how to violate the Constitution of the United States. And if you don't think that's the truth, you better read some of their literature.
I always ask this question anytime we talk to you folks, because a lot of people, this, I think a lot of people would not assume is trash, but this, how is this not trash? How is this acceptable?
It's on my property. I have no contract with the county, with Seminole County. When Seminole County has a contract with me, then I can live up to their standards. Until that time, I don't care. It's my property. I'm making the payments. If my neighbors don't like it, like the real estate bitch down the street, if she doesn't like it, she can come buy it. But she moved in here afterwards. And Mr. formerly Ponytail, if he doesn't like it, he moved in afterwards. If he didn't like it, why did he buy here?
But what about the people who already lived here? Do you think anyone's going to buy their house with this?
The people on the corner just did. The people across the street bought here a couple years ago. The guy next door to him bought that property. If this is such a terrible eyesore, why are these people paying top dollar for their properties?
Are they paying top dollar?
$235,000 for the house on the corner, or $215,000, I think. Excuse me, for a house built in 1971 that's a nothing house? Excuse me, I find that to be quite expensive.
So you don't think all of this is doing anything to deter people from buying houses on the street?
Not at all. And this started the week that we moved in 1987. We had 2 box trucks moving our stuff here. The president of the so-called Homeowners Association called our place of employment and said, you get those trucks off. We're moving in, for God's sakes. 1987.
Do you want to go somewhere where it's a little bit quieter? Do you want to go inside or?
No, we outside.
Stay out here.
Yeah.
Actually, now that thing's back there, I think we're fine. What do you make of all these people doing this, coming on your property?
I think these
what do you
people.
Think they should?
I think these people have no clue. And the people. Let me put it to you this way: in the trial in 2003, when that jury decided Alan's fate in 20 minutes, picked a foreman and decided his fate in 20 minutes, they had absolutely no idea what they were doing. Because if you read the laws of the state of Florida, first off, felony littering is a commercial offense. But the state attorney's office decided they were going to apply it to a private residence. Okay, so the law reads that if it violates any other law or offense, if it's more than 500 cubic pounds, something to that effect. Okay? What violates the law, the way they got it was on a nuisance. And that nuisance is if it could potentially contain a teaspoon of water that could potentially breed flies, mosquitoes, or arthropod, and could be injurious to the public health. Okay, you can't have a tarp. Home Depot, Lowe's, all these other stores, they can't sell tarps because they could potentially hold a teaspoon of water. Now, are they going to make Lowe's, Home Depot, and all these other stores stop selling tarps? You can't even bring your vehicle onto your property because it violates the laws of the state of Florida.
So you think all these laws need to be cleaned up?
These laws needed to be cleaned up a long time ago, and
what about the yard, though?
Jeb Bush, Charlie Crist, Rick Scott, all these governors don't want to do a damn thing about it.
What do you think should happen to all these people who are on your property right now, taking your stuff?
I think these people are pawns of the county. They are just doing what they've been asked to do. The sheriff's department, on the other hand, all need to go to jail. And Pamela Taylor needs to go to jail, and all these other code enforcement people need to go to jail because they know how to violate the Constitution of the United States, and they don't give a crap.
What did Alan say this morning? Did you call him and tell him?
I called him. He's just they want to arrest him again, and that's the whole thing. They want to arrest him. So he's not coming. Why should he come? He's not, I mean, he's been on the phone with the governor. He's been on the phone with county commissioners.
Have you ever thought about moving and just getting out of here?
No, because that is exactly what Seminole County wants. Seminole County wants to be the bully and make us move. And that we won't do.
Well, at this point, I don't think they can move because they're going to take all of the money from their home, right?
Yeah.
What really breaks my heart with this is once these people pass away, they'll have nothing to leave to their child. There's a daughter involved here because the county's going to take their property immediately as soon as it goes to try to change hands. So,
and they what she talked about with like them utilizing this law that's not supposed to be for this. I mean, unfortunately, people, they do that all the time in things.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And they just manipulate the interpretation, right? Because that's what it comes down to, interpreting the law. Is they manipulate the interpretation, and they do mental gymnastics to be able to utilize a law to engage force when they shouldn't be able to.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
I did want to make a quick correction, if I may, with the Fifth Amendment. I'm educated on this now, I guess. That has to do with eminent domain, I believe. It's when the government's trying to take your private property for public use. Now, that's not what's going on here. It's for the public health and welfare, maybe. But the property that they're trying to take is considered. So it says, the United States dealing with private property, specifically stating that private property shall not be taken for public use without just compensation. That this is a category area. This is not what's happening here. This clause ensures that the government, if the government takes private property for public use, it must provide fair compensation to the property owner. Now, what made me think of it is auctioning off a bunch of quote unquote junk, or what people think junk, fair compensation if they were doing eminent domain? You know what I mean? Like, because nobody really wanted to pay anything for that. You know, so it's interesting. But now, how do they determine what fair compensation is? They just kind of like slap an auction together and don't really advertise it. They don't estimate the prices of any of this stuff. So I mean, there's a lot of interesting questions here, and I think the reason why she probably, what's the over under that her house is like a episode of Hoarders on the inside?
I was thinking the same thing. If the outside looks like that, I don't even want to see the inside.
I bet you the inside is clean.
You think so?
Yes.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Because it's a political.
You know what?
Political thing.
The way he wrote on that toilet paper. Yeah.
Yeah. You have a point.
There's a chance. There's a chance.
Do you think she was just being flippant, or was there like a chance that they could have been bought out? She said something to the effect of this real estate lady could have bought the house if she cared. Didn't she say something like that?
She did, but I think she's just saying, she was just saying that if the neighbors, she was pointing out neighbors who had moved in after this had all started. So if it's such a big problem with the property value, then why don't they try to buy our house, or, give us an offer? Or why are there still people buying houses in the neighborhood if it's that big of a deal? Because it's, I don't know when this interview was from, 9 years ago. And it sounded like the houses were going for like $200,000 then. So middle class 9 years ago, I'm trying to think, we bought our house like 15 years ago. It was about that at that time, we live in a middle class area.
That's an interesting point, isn't it? If that's true,
yeah,
it doesn't look like it hurt the value that much, at least.
No,
but can I say this?
Maybe it could have gone for more, but who knows,
But can I say this though? Isn't it nice to have a wife? That's his wife, right?
Yeah.
Oh, right. Talk about ride or die.
Yeah.
Like she is ride or die with this dude, man. That's love right there.
Absolutely.
I respect that.
Or Stockholm syndrome, because we can tend to gas up our loved ones and get them all fired up, and they'll mimic us a little bit.
I'm gonna tell you this though.
A strong personality. Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you this though, my wife would not. If I was hoarding stuff in the lawn and the neighbors running by like yelling, she would not be ride or die with that. So he picked the right one for sure. I couldn't blame her.
It sounded like she was some of her verbiage in that interview sounded like sovereign citizen type language
Yeah.
too. Did you notice that?
Smart.
Yeah. Contract. So
Mhm.
interesting. I was low key kind of impressed because they could hire out people like this to go into certain neighborhoods and just trash the heck out of the property value, and then you could get a conglomerate to come in and swoop in
What?
and then buy up
Government would
properties
never do
cheaper.
that. What are you talking about?
Who on earth,
That's what
China,
happened.
would do that?
Didn't they do that in
China.
San Francisco with all the
Yeah.
poop on the streets until the Chinese till Xi came to visit, and then suddenly we found a place for all the poo and the homeless.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. I don't think
Miraculous.
that's the case here, but it does
No,
make
no.
sense. It's been going on for too long for that to be the case here. I think this has been going on longer than that was a thing, you know.
So it sounds like we're siding on his side. I think I
Right.
would agree because he did the time for it too. I mean, I don't know how you can't side with him. What did he do? I mean, what do you want?
I'm just picturing living right next door, like immediately next door.
Ugh.
And
I'm inviting them over for a barbecue, bro.
I totally would too. But I mean, I just wouldn't want to. I don't know.
So this is my view on this. So we all have like a red line. For instance, for me, like I have I have a huge garden. My backyard is basically all a garden, right? And I grow a bunch of food out there. And I built like essentially in Arizona, it gets too hot in the summer. I built a sunshade to go over it, and it does exceed like my walls. So you could make the argument that could be an eyesore. My neighbors don't like looking at or whatever, right? So, but if someone were to tell me that I can't have that, I would push back against that. Now, I think what this guy's doing is he's basically doing the same thing except to the way extreme. That's why I don't think like he's a messy guy. I think it's pure political, and he's an extremist when it comes to making the point.
Well, he's obviously a talented artist. Did you see the statues he was building? I mean, what did you think about him putting that in his pickup truck and taking it to court?
It proves your point. He's defiant on obviously, clearly.
Yeah.
It's really, I mean, that is the American spirit. I mean, there's nothing more American spirit to me than that act of defiance in kind of defense of your own rights to do what you want to do.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's rewind. Let's rewind and pretend that there was a moment and Kamala won the presidency. And 3 years after that, the United States of America collapsed, and it was an S hits the F scenario. Imagine the resources that guy has sitting in his yard for trying to purpose out, and parts and all kinds of steel and rubber and all the different things I mean, listen, man, everything's great, and while we're all in this bubble wrapped, everything's hunky dory, and there's still food on the shelves, even if it is expensive. But when you get an S hits the F kind of scenario, dude, that would be an asset, man. Are you kidding me?
Well, and if you notice, people who live out in the middle of nowhere do have a junk pile. Like if you wander around Alaska, there's $1 million homes up there that also have a junk pile because they reuse and they try to get every use out of everything they can because it's so difficult to get things up there. So maybe there's something to that.
There's absolutely. That's a great point. And that, I mean, it kind of goes to what she said. I loved her line when the reporter asked her, "Why isn't this trash?" And she was like, "Because it's on my property. That's why." I was like, "Whoa, she's not playing games." Your point is so good, though. You're right. I mean, yeah, we lose electricity right today, like permanently, or even for 30 days. Everything changes.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I sit there and I look in the neighborhood where people are cutting down trees. Matter of fact, we just had some nasty weather come through not too long ago here in Kentucky, and I'm going to be helping my neighbor kind of clear a split tree there, kind of clean it up a little bit. And I'm like, I'll take that wood. Now, I've got 0.3 of an acre here in the city, but like you said, to your point, the electricity goes out. That little outdoor Dutch oven that I have. That might be the only way I feed my family or heat up water, or is having that extra wood. Now, what looks to be a menace, or not a menace, but a nuisance, extra pile of wood is an asset. It's about here too, but you can also do all kinds of stuff with that wood. You could do hugel culture, like I don't know if you're familiar with hugel culture, but you'd have the bits of it's basically a German technique of building up soil. So you start with like logs and stumps and stuff and leaves, and then you
I did that with my garden. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So I mean, these things are assets. Matter of fact, heck, I got chickens. You put some of those big logs down there, and you just roll them every day, and there's worms and bugs. Worms and bugs. That's free protein.
Yep.
It's interesting though how we've been so bubble wrapped and so cushioned in America that we don't know what it's like to have to tighten our belt, and we're starting to get, but hopefully we can pull up from it.
Yeah, we have a whole corner of our yard that's just we got a new deck over last summer, and it instead of having the company take the old deck away, it's just piled up in the corner of like we have like over an acre, so we have we have land, but it's just back there. It's it will either rot down and become really fertile soil, or we'll use or burn the wood somehow. But yeah.
Well, my only caution is if it's been treated, you don't want that going in your soil. Not sorry, I'm that guy. I don't put anything. Like I don't spray. I've got a little mini orchard. I've got some grapes. I've got my raised garden beds. Fertilizer even is like coffee grounds, ground up eggshells mixed together.
Yep.
I mean, I'm just or I'll do like anyway, we're not
compost. I got red wiggler worms that.
Yep. That's what I need to learn to do. Yeah.
Well, this kind of went in
I don't know what's going on.
Now it's like a homesteading conversation.
What do you grow for food, Osiris?
We don't even have a garden right now, but we used to do tomatoes. My mom, man, she has a green thumb, but she would have corn. It wasn't a big farm or anything, just like one stock or something like that. But squash, corn, all kinds of stuff. They composted everything basically that they could, and that soil was just immaculate. We would have deer coming through to try to in a suburban area, not rural, but because it was nice. We had groundhogs and all kinds of stuff. Because when you start building up, she had an apple tree in Cleveland, Ohio. My mom had a plum tree and a peach tree. Now we didn't get that much fruit from the peach, but she did get a little bit. I mean, she just had a green thumb.
Yeah, we have peach tree. We had 2 peach trees. We have one now. One of them got struck by lightning a couple years ago. But we have blueberries that come back every year, raspberries, and then I have a couple of raised beds that I've grown different. Usually tomatoes. We go through a lot of tomatoes and cucumbers and stuff like that. Easy to grow. I have an area that I tried to grow potatoes. It didn't go very well. We might try it again this year. So.
And there's a beauty about, you said that your upbringing was the English garden where it's about diversity, right? Because if you think about the diversity of permaculture and layering things, raspberry, blueberry bushes, comfrey plants, interdispersed with your orchard, like your apples, pears, that kind of stuff. What it does is it creates a biodiversity that not only you're bringing in certain predators that are going to feed on those pests. But if you're in this monoculture, like all apples, and just some blight comes along, you might not have the predators that are going to be there attracted to deal with the pest pressure. So my wife commented a couple of years ago, she's like, she just loves sitting out back when it's right there, when spring is sprung, birds. And she's like, there's so much diversity back here. There's a cacophony of just amazing sounds echoing right from our property. I highly recommend it.
Ecosystem.
Ecosystem. Exactly.
Let's get back on track and take a look at his trial.
A Seminole County resident, he is known as the Junkman, pled guilty to violation of probation, but then apparently he took it back. In February, Alan Davis was ordered to clean up this mess in his front yard, but code enforcement officials say he never did. Channel 9's Jeff Love Coolidge was inside the courtroom all day today. And Jeff, this case never seems to end, and it's been a wild day in court.
It's one of the craziest trials I've had the pleasure of covering, Martha, that's for sure. Now, Alan Davis spent hours this morning and this afternoon cross-examining witnesses, but in the end, this ended up happening after he initially pled guilty. Take a listen.
That's what I told you, sir. I'm not playing games. I'm going to withdraw my plea. What's just happened?
He withdrew his plea, and it appears that the judge was leaning towards jail time for Davis for violating his probation when he changed his mind. Now, the day started off with Davis representing himself. He had a hard time learning the court decorum when it came to cross-examining witnesses. This afternoon, Davis took the stand in his own defense and even tried to cross-examine himself on the stand, but suddenly he became flustered and then asked for a public defender. The public defender then talked to him, and he decided to change his plea to guilty. And then, as I said, he changed his mind when the judge was about to hand down that sentence. Now, as for when this hearing will happen again, it's been continued, but so far we don't know exactly when they'll be back here in court to hear what Davis has to say. But for now, reporting live in Seminole County, Jeff Lefkolich, Channel 9 Eyewitness News.
It sounds like he was representing himself to start with, which is a very sovereign citizen thing to do.
Not a smart thing, though.
Never represent yourself. What are you doing? Would either of you ever represent yourself in court?
No, I'm dumb.
Yeah.
Of course not.
You could do it probably with AI a little bit easier than in the past, but that's a tough one. But did they say he cross-examined himself? I'm trying to figure that.
Tried to.
Yeah, he tried to cross-examine himself, and
Wait,
then
how
he
do you
asked for a-
cross-examine yourself? Am I missing something?
I mean, people have done it before in that famous case up there in Wisconsin.
Okay.
With the what's the Darnell Brooks, the guy who ran those people over in the parade. He represented himself, and he put himself on the stand and asked himself questions.
Do you literally? I don't want to take it too. Do you literally ask yourself a question, or is it just a
Yeah.
speech?
No, you have to ask yourself a question and then answer it. Yeah.
That's pretty crazy. I've never
I-
even. Wow.
Personally think you should always have a lawyer, even if you want to be more involved in your own defense. You should always have a lawyer.
Yeah, because it's going to look awkward to the. There's a jury, I thought.
Yeah,
Or
yep.
or either way, even if it's just a bench trial, it'll look
Yeah.
kind of awkward. Yeah.
So you mentioned the sovereign citizen thing a couple times. Now there is a different. I believe. I'm not one of these people, so I don't know. But there's a difference between sovereign citizen and like United States national, I think, where like they have crossover, like, and they say similar things, but the sovereign citizen thing is like wacky.
I'm not as well versed in it as some of the people I hang out with are, but I think it's all a little bit wacky. It's there's also crossover with like the Black Hebrew Israelites have a lot of the same sort of thoughts about the government and stuff like that. Just basically ungovernable people. You know?
Yeah. But I think the U.S. national, there's more like legal basis to it than the sovereign citizen thing is. I think a lot of it's just made up where they're just like, I don't know. They're like, I'm a sovereign. I don't.
They
I don't have to have a driver's license.
Exactly. Yeah. They basically they don't have to do anything. They just do whatever they want. It's like yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
So I get more of the like. Yes, I think he does. It sounds like they have some tendencies, him and his wife. But I think he is very smart, and she sounds pretty smart too.
Yeah.
And I think they probably have some legal basis. It's just fighting against the man or a machine or whatever you want to call it. Sometimes it doesn't matter because they'll just do what they want.
So what do you guys think will ultimately end up happening in this situation? Like as it stands right now, his property still looks like that. It's been 25 years.
Wow.
What do you think will happen? Like, how will this end?
I think it depends on who's in the leadership, like leading the charge on the government side. So like, if it goes high enough, like I've seen, there was a story about a guy. It's kind of similar, except he was just like a minimal needs guy. So he collected rainwater. He used candlelight in his house. So therefore, he was not going to pay for electric bills or anything. But apparently, you can't do that. You can't just be on your own in a city. Maybe in the country, but he's in a city, and he's like, I prefer candlelight. I collect water and drink it from the rain. And they ended up manipulating a law, of course, that got him evicted, and they stole his home. So
wow,
yeah. When
that's crazy to me.
Just like they say, like laws are only as strong as if they're enforced, right? Like if if there's a law that's ridiculous, it's just an old law that we just don't like follow, and cops are like, this is stupid, I'm not gonna arrest you for this. It can go the other way too, where like if it's not a law but there's enough force from the people in power, they can do whatever they want in a way.
Force is a big thing. The people with the guns have, the people with the guns are the government. And with the biggest guns are the government, and they can basically do whatever they want, and that's scary.
Well,
It's a scary world to live in.
Yeah, like what Dave Smith, Middle Maggie, I'm sure you know Dave Smith. He has a saying where he's like, the government is essentially a monopolization on power, right? And so if they want to execute that power and and there's not enough resistance, they'll just bulldoze you.
Yeah, I think it's smart that the government has not overstepped too much, other than they stepped on his property. But I think it'd be good to negotiate something. You got the 5 million whatever fines. I think the most likely is he lives on until this is over. I mean, if you're going to jail, you're not being bought out. But the happy ending that I would like is to see a negotiation and just say, hey, we'll buy you out and you got to move or whatever. Keep it, I don't know, whatever the negotiation is, and then you keep on moving.
I think a fair thing would be, we will waive the $5 million in fines if you clean up your property. And then once his lifetime is over, he'll have that property to either sell and pass on, to have some sort of generational wealth to pass on to his daughter, or she could live in that house, whatever it happens to be. But what I fear is that he's going to pass away and his wife and his daughter are going to be homeless because the government's going to take his house.
Absolutely. This would be the time to do it, because you're getting older, all that feistiness. You made your point. You did the time. You should be, I mean, he should be proud of himself to living up to his beliefs. A lot of people don't do that. And he could proudly buy himself out a negotiation. You can't, as a man, leave your wife and your daughter with nothing over the principle. You know what I mean? What's the principle at that point?
Well,
it sounds like that's what he's going to do, though.
I think I know what he would say to that. I'm pretty sure he would say something to the effect of, it's more important that I leave my daughter in a world where has more freedom opposed to a home. Like,
he's not doing that, though.
I know.
Nothing's changing.
But that's his point, though. I mean, he's not doing this
for money.
Yeah, he's doing it as a political, what do you call it? A political protest
statement. Yeah. But let me ask you, can the fines be handed down to family or no?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Okay.
But they can take the house before it changes hands.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
So-
for sure. And then they would be out with nothing.
Yeah, exactly. I have one more clip pulled up, and then I guess we can give final thoughts. And I think this is a great conversation, guys. I don't even know what this one is that I have pulled up. This is the most recent. This clip is just from a couple of months ago. So,
well, longtime Central Floridians may recognize this infamous sculpture. How could you forget it? It was built by Alan Davis, known to some as the Seminole County Junk Man. For 25 years now, Davis has been piling junk in the front yard of his home.
It's been quite the drama. He's racked up millions of dollars in code violation fines. Yes, millions. And yet, as News 6 investigator Mike DeForest shows us, Davis continues to annoy his neighbors with his unsightly yard.
By this time tomorrow, a sheriff's investigator will likely drive by here to confirm that Davis has violated the court order. Nearly 25 years ago, I began covering complaints about this Central Florida home.
It's a junkyard.
Seminole County officials said the owner, Alan Davis, had been piling junk in his yard in violation of local ordinances.
But every time they keep screwing with me, I keep moving more. And there is nothing they're going to do about it.
Back then, Davis had just a small amount of junk on his property.
You think there's a lot here now? Why don't you come back by tomorrow? Let's see what I really think of the county.
At that point, Davis had not yet built this giant statue of a human rear end, which he would later load onto his truck and drive down the interstate while headed to court hearings.
The name of the sculpture is Kiss My and you can just do it.
Davis had not yet been arrested, put on trial, and sent to prison for criminal littering.
You got a pool back there that's really, really bad.
Did you think when I first met you nearly 25 years ago that we would be standing here talking today?
No. Well, I thought for sure by now it'd be cleaned up, to be honest with you.
If the government can tell you what to do with your property, you don't have freedom. This is freedom.
This is freedom.
This is freedom.
Alan Davis's 25-year history annoying his neighbors with his junk is simply too wild for us to tell in a short TV story. That's why we've put together a mini documentary about this ongoing neighborhood dispute. You can find it right now on our website, clickorlando.com. We've also posted it on our News 6 YouTube channel. In that longer version, I explain why Davis made these mini statues. I will tell you, he did have a legal strategy behind it, or at least he thought he did.
It's fascinating. That's been on my desk for a very long time.
20 years.
He always has to tell the story as people walk by. So you've covered this for many years. I watched the documentary. It is worth your 15 minutes. Let me tell you this, because I missed a lot of the story. It happened so long ago. Has this affected neighbors who are trying to sell their houses?
It certainly affected their quality of life for some of them. There are some who don't mind the mess. I think early on when we first started covering this 2 decades ago or more, there was some very serious concern that that junk would hamper property values and make it harder for folks to sell their homes. Of course, this area, although unincorporated Seminole County, is right behind the Altamont Mall, which, as you know, is booming in popularity. Yeah. There is a housing demand. So to answer your question, it doesn't appear that it's impacting the sales of homes, but there are still folks who say that it's an eyesore and it limits the amount of people that they could sell to.
I mean, it's now almost a tourist attraction at this point. So whether you agree with him or not, you have to give him credit that for 25 years, he has really stood behind this thing.
Well, and that's the thing, is the county has tried, and they say they've tried all the tools that they legally have to try to stop this. Fines. He's been fined millions of dollars. Yeah. He's not going to pay it. And so that doesn't bother him. He's been to jail and prison twice now.
Wow.
A total of up to 5 years, I think I calculated, in custody. And that hasn't deterred him. So
what will, right?
He says nothing.
Yeah.
Yes, which it's fascinating to see. He believes in his plight. That is for sure.
Yes, he
does. DeForest, watch this thing. It's so good.
All right. So it sounds like it's not hampering house sales. So now what's the problem?
I don't know. That's a great question. Because if it's all these rats and rodents or whatever, it doesn't seem like it based on that.
Exactly. So who's he violating at this point?
I think I've come full circle. I mean, I said he did nothing wrong, but I don't see any proof of rights being violated out by his neighbor from his neighbor.
Except for his rights. His rights are being violated. Yeah. Those are the only rights that I can see being violated.
Yeah, I agree.
What a story. How did you come up on this story?
One of my Ace in the chat, the driver, sent it to me, emailed it to me. And I think when he sent it to me, he thought I'd be on the neighbor's side. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ace, but I watched it and I could see both sides, because I don't think I'd want to live in the neighborhood with him personally. But also he seems like a fun guy to hang out with, right? So maybe I would want him as a neighbor. I don't know, if it's not going to affect my property value, I don't see a problem with it.
We've had 2 decades to look at it, and there's no definitive it's affected property value.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a tough sell. I don't.
Yeah.
Now I'm wondering if the jury did the right thing. Now it doesn't look like they did.
No, and the rule that the wife was talking about, how you can't have anything outside of your property that holds a tablespoon of water. That's just a crazy law. Like, how do you not have anything?
Yeah.
Like, you could have a pothole in your driveway that's going to hold and that's against the law. Or any kind of anything with a tarp over it, like she said. I'm just trying to think of things on my property. I have some planters out front that when it rains too much, water holds in there, So
it's very funny. I just remembered I was another show that I like to watch. The guys who do the show, it's like anyways, that's important. They're very don't tell me what to do kind of people, kind of similar, right? But they're not, they're not really like libertarian, but they just like, don't tell me what to do. They live in Florida. They're like, we do what we want. They were, I think it was the same story, but they were watching a different coverage of it. Yeah. And they just kept going back and forth with like on his side, off his side, on his side.
It's hard. Yeah. It's a hard one for real. GS, if you're listening, come back for closing thoughts, please. I don't know. He messaged that he had to go do something with his dinner. So, but did either of you have any final thoughts, especially about that law about holding a tablespoon of water. That seems crazy to me.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's an inspiring story, to be honest with you. I mean, the guy stood on his principles still to this day. Looks like he's going to do it for his life.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm looking at it. Are there things that I believe that much in that I would stand for? So I have to look at that. I don't
Yep.
know. 5 years is a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What do
I would say, so I'm a father as well, and
You have a gaggle of kids just like my co-host
yeah, I
KFARR
love
does.
kids.
Yeah.
But I
And
would say
Elon Musk too. I mean,
not that many. And mine's with one woman. But the fact that he has a daughter, it kind of makes me conflicted because like I think you got to leave these battles up for people who like don't have dependents, you know? Like I mean, I get it, like, and that's what I said, like, I think his response would be, no, I'm doing this for my daughter so she can live in a freer world, right? Whether that's going to happen or not, who knows? Probably not. But
Yeah.
I do think these stands are important. And, you know, unfortunately, if, you know, that it's impacting other people's homes, which it doesn't sound like it really is, but going this far sets precedence because that way it's like that saying like he ran so we could walk or something like
Yeah.
that, right? So I think these are important. However, I wish it would have been like someone who didn't have a kid relying on him, you know. Missing 4 years with your father is horrific.
Yeah. Oof, that's a tough one.
Yeah,
Because he
well-
put that principle above his 5 years with his daughter.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, that's kind of I do find it interesting too that he bought a house in unincorporated Seminole County. So it's an unincorporated part of the county that looks delicious. But when I bought my house, we made sure to buy a house in an unincorporated part of the county because we didn't want these extra government people over us. We have a house that's not in a homeowners association neighborhood, and it is in an unincorporated part of a county in northern Georgia.
What does it mean? I don't know what that means.
It's not in a city. There's no city associated with it.
Oh.
I call the police. The county cops come, not the city cops.
Got it.
But he did that, and he's still getting like, you know, these government officials, these county government officials coming at him. So I don't know what else you could do. There's no further out where you could live except an unincorporated part of a county, you know? So
yeah.
Did you have final thoughts, GS?
Yeah, I just want to say sorry about that. I've had that corned beef and cabbage. It was a request from one of my viewers for the cooking episode on my channel, and it's been in the crock pot since about 9 o'clock this morning. So my wife was side eyeing me pretty hardcore, and I was like, yeah, I gotta get some food in my beloved. So yeah, I think we have to err on the side of, you know, like I think Brick Jones said early on, who's the victim?
Yep.
Where's the
Yep.
victim?
Yep.
Where's the injury?
And we thought at the start of this, I thought it was the neighbors, but apparently from this most recent story, it hasn't affected property values. So where is the victim?
Yeah. So, you know, you got to be able to produce some injurious aspects other than your feelings, your eyes. Now, don't get me wrong.
Yep.
You know, now noise pollution, there's ordinances for that. Litter, there's ordinance for that, and it sounds like that's what they try to hem them on.
Yeah.
My feeling on it is I'm kind of a law and order kind of guy. Is I would try to get a grassroots movement to try to change the laws, and I think that's what the wife was talking about. For my final argument would be, I think the wife was the one hitting the drum really soundly and wisely by saying, we need to get rid of all these draconian. I mean, like you can't walk on a crack on the sidewalk and spit and chew gum at the same time on a Sunday while heading to church. Otherwise, you know, I mean, I mean, we got these draconian like laws that are just out of control, and taxes and fees and everything. It's becoming very oppressive to be an American. And I like the spirit of these people. I would like to say I doff my cap to them in honor of a St. Patty meal right here.
Yeah.
So.
So the audience, I asked at the beginning when we first started, should Mr. Davis be able to do whatever he wants on his property? And of course, GS had to bring up, oh, does that mean murder kittens? Actually, yeah, if there's stray cats on his property, he should be able to murder them, in my opinion. But I was talking about the junk, and 56% of my audience says yes, he should be able to have all of that junk on his property, and 44% say no. So it was very split. So maybe because I'm very split, that's why my audience is very split, and that's why my audience and I get along. I'm not sure, but I think I am landing on Mr. Davis's side on this one.
I would say, to make an argument on the other side, again, that kind of circles back to like what I first said with like-minded people. If you have a community that all agree except for like one person, I mean, what do you do there? You know, if the vast majority, and I don't know if this is the case, it sounds like there's a couple people who have an issue with it, but let's say the vast majority all agree in this unincorporated town that, hey, we don't like this. And the one outlier is not, I guess, doing like, what's the word? Like being part of that community. I'm not saying that he should have to, but it's important just in general to be around like-minded people. And I mean, this guy should just move to New Hampshire.
Live free or die, right? Yeah, I could definitely see where people, where his neighbors might have a problem, but it sounded like all of his neighbors were against him when they first reported the story. And then this most recent report that was from not too long ago, it sounded more like it was split 50-50, right? Did you guys want to plug your channels before we...
Yeah, for sure. Thanks. Thanks for having me. Very interesting. I'm going to ask my wife what she thinks about this.
Yeah.
But my channel is Middle MAGA. So the reason why it's called Middle MAGA is I'm somewhere in between like Steve Bannon or Jimmy Dore. You know, I can go right or left on any issue. So check it out, Middle MAGA.
Awesome.
Okay. And everybody's links are in the description below, by the way. And Connie, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I do horseshoes, hand grenades every Tuesday. It's very, very edgy stuff, but we do just give weird perspectives on current events and politics. But if you're, don't go watch it. we try to push the boundaries of offensive and edgy things. But I do a gaming show on, if you like video games, it's kind of kiddish, but I do it on Fridays. At 8, and both shows are at 8 o'clock Mountain Standard Time, and then that'd be 10 o'clock Eastern.
Yes.
Horseshoes, hand grenades on Rumble.
I'll put that in the chat too.
I got at Subpar Gaming Alpha is the full at. It's kind of just look for Subpar. Maybe you'll see me. And my main channel is generally specific, where you can catch me unless there's an emergency. At 9 o'clock Monday through Friday. I chose that time, 9 p.m. Eastern, so that I could say you can catch my show at 99999. And so just to tick off the libs just a little bit more. By the way, I voted no, and I would love to have expounded a little bit as to my thoughts, my thought processes. I don't know if anyone else in the panel wanted to opine.
I don't have a hard time. Go ahead if you want to.
Well, my food is getting cold, so I won't keep you guys too long. But I don't know. I just thought I thought that there should be limits to what one does in the presence of others. Now, there's a danger. What's the gentleman's name right above me? There's no name
Connie.
tag. Connie. All right, sir. There's a danger in ad populum. There's a danger in a democracy. That could be two wolves voting on what's for dinner amongst the sheep. Or it could be everyone in your neighborhood decides that, well, we collectively got together and voted, well, Connie's got too much stuff in his backyard, so we each get to go take a wheelbarrow full of it home, and you can't do nothing about it. So there is a danger in having a collective thought. I understand what you're saying, and it makes sense. It's called continuity, right? Continuity of community, right? And it's pretty important. But it can be dangerous if you're that outcast, right? Especially if we claim to be the bastion of freedom, the beacon of light in the world.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Like, I have really strange politics personally, like between like fascism and libertarianism.
Yeah, it's dangerous.
I also know the world we live in, right? So like, I mean, you know, there's human nature and things like that. But personally, I wish, I mean, everyone just thought the exact same as me, and everyone left each other alone and did what you want to an extent. But yeah, I agree with you. I understand.
Yeah, there's two types of people in the world. People want to be left alone, and people won't leave them the F alone.
You're right.
So, all right. Thank you so much, Miss Katie.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you all for joining me. I appreciate it. I'm going to play the outro music, and if you want to hang out and chat afterwards, you can. If you got to go, you got to go. I get it. Thanks for coming, everybody. Join me again Wednesday at 8 p.m. with KFARR, where we'll have another episode of Booze and Body Cams. That's the next time you'll see me. Have a great week. Until then, bye, guys.
First Florida man was Hernando de Soto. First Florida man, Hernando de Soto. First Florida man was Hernando de Soto. Won't you so loco? Show off your photos, throw out your Twinkies, throw up your ho-hos, tuck in them pinkies. Them shits a no-no. The first Florida man was Hernando de Soto. Brought to my attention by the man with the mojo. My 8th subscriber, I'm a bagoso. Jump in them Sinkies and dump them mimosos. The first Florida man was Hernando de Soto. First Florida man was Hernando de Soto. First Florida man was Hernando de Soto.